Listen, a lot of stuff going on. We got Attorney Glennon Threatt on with us this morning, and not guilty on all charges. That's the verdict that came out of Kenosha, Wisconsin on Friday in homicide trial. While in the homicide trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. By the way, Tamar, the young kid, Tamar,
Tamir Rice.
Tamir Rice was sitting on a swing with a toy gun, and he's dead. And Trayvon Martin is dead. Just want to throw that in there. Meanwhile, in Brunswick, Georgia, closing arguments are set to begin today as 3 men are on trial in connection with the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. We got Attorney Glennon Threatt is back with us again this morning to discuss both cases. Good morning, Attorney Threatt.
Good morning, Rickey, and good morning to your radio audience.
Man, what is your reaction Friday? And I know what you, bruh, when you text me and said what you said, I put it on Facebook because you're absolutely right. Friday to the not guilty verdicts for Kyle Rittenhouse after the jury deliberated for 3.5 days. Were you surprised?
I was not surprised, Rickey, unfortunately, because of the way the trial had been going. I had been watching parts of it along the way, and just the temper of the case, the way the judge was making rulings, which I felt favored the defendant, and also the standard of self-defense. And to be honest, there was some evidence that Mr. Rittenhouse was threatened. There was an incident where one of the defendants, one of the victims, allegedly pulled a gun on him, and that was on the video. So I wasn't surprised by that at all. But the thing that surprises me about the Rittenhouse case is what other people's reactions to it were. First of all, we know that Rittenhouse was out on a $2 million bond that had been raised online. And so the fact that this case had national implications is no surprise to anybody. So his acquittal has increased support in the right for gun owners, and it's going to have national implications going forward. It's going to make right-wing fanatics think that whenever there's a protest for black racial justice, that they can arm themselves and go to that protest as counter-protesters. And if something happens, like they end up killing somebody, that they'll be free of any consequences for it. And so that vigilante justice standard being set by this case is very, very damaging.
Yeah, that's pretty scary and dangerous, man. And Glennon, now you talked a little bit about how the jury may have arrived at that not guilty on all of the counts, but can you speak on that a little bit more and how they came to the not guilty on everything?
Well, there were two shootings. There was one shooting involving Mr. Rosenbaum where there was evidence in the video that Rosenbaum had reached for the barrel of his gun. And that there also, Rittenhouse testified that prior to the events that were captured on the video, that Rosenbaum had said some threats to him. Now, that wasn't captured, and the prosecutor argued that it didn't happen, but the jury heard that evidence and may have believed it. Now, the second incident involved the murder, the killing and the shooting of the second and third victims. And in that instance, there was somebody that pointed a gun at Mr. Rittenhouse. In fact, the victim testified that he did, in fact, do that. So, and that was prior to Rittenhouse shooting him. So there was some evidence that Rittenhouse was responding to a perceived threat.
Hey, Glenn, I got to ask you, the performance of the judge with the, the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, like if a judge behavior is just really, really bad and really, really biased, what happens? Because once you prosecute somebody, then that's dead. It ain't like they could redo it.
That's correct. It's hard to get a judge disciplined, Rickey. I've been practicing criminal defense law for 37 years. I wish I had that judge over some of my trials. I mean, he was the most pro-defense judge I've ever seen. He wouldn't even let the people that had been killed be referred to as victims. He let the defendant pick the members of the jury that were going to be alternates and by his hand out of a lottery box. I mean, there were a lot of things that are very unusual to that case and maybe even unique to Wisconsin law in general. But, I wish I had a judge like that in many of my cases.
It was pretty crazy. So, look, Glennon, in Brunswick, down in Georgia, the closing arguments are scheduled to start today in the Ahmaud Arbery, for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Now, what's your thoughts about this defense attorney and all the controversial stuff that statements he's making?
That guy is bananas. You talking about Mr. Bow, the attorney for Brian, I think. Yeah, he's the one that made the comments about the people out, the demonstrators that include a number of black pastors being a public lynching. And he also tried to get Reverend Sharpton and Jesse Jackson excluded from the courtroom. he's trying to develop some appellate issues in my mind, and just trying to publicize, hoping some of that stuff will get back to the jury and poison the panel. But the Arbery case is very different than Rittenhouse, because Arbery was a classic lynching, where these vigilantes just decided they could go out and kill somebody because they basically wanted to. But the judge in that case, Judge Halsey, made a ruling that I think is going to help for the defendants to win. And he ruled that the interpretation of the Georgia law that allows citizens to arrest people only applied in instances where the people had witnessed the felony occurring immediately before the arrest. And that's going to gut that case, as one of the defense lawyers said, because they allege that Mr. Arbery committed crimes days, if not even months, before they went out to try and arrest him under this sort of cockinated citizens arrest sort of scheme on a law that has since been, thrown out by the Georgia governor.
Wow.
So hopefully we'll see a different result in Georgia.
Yeah. So let me. I think the thing that's confusing, all three defendants are those. So by all of them at the defense table, whatever the jury come back with, all of them have to serve that same time.
No, well, it depends on what they get convicted of, and they could get convicted or first of all, they could get acquitted of everything, but even if convicted, they could be convicted of different things. The thing that's crazy about the Arbery case is that you got a shooter, and then you have another accomplice who is his father, who was also armed, and then you got a third guy, Mr. Bryan, who wasn't armed at all. And so they're all charged with murder in a case as being complicit and accomplices to each other when only two of them had guns.
Because when black folks go out and commit crimes or whatever, you watch First 48 and you can see that, okay, you was with him, they all go to jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's called accomplice liability, and that means if you facilitate the crime. When you look at the McDaniel and his dad, they both were acting in concert. In fact, I think that the dad was the one who told his son to go and get the shotgun when the dad got his .357. So they drove together, and then Brian came a little bit later. But they were all involved. That case was just a straight-up Georgia lynching. That was a case where some white men with racist implications decided that they didn't like what a black man was doing, and they decided to take the law into their own hands, and it ended up in Mr. Arbery's unfortunate murder. But, it's very different than Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse is really a case where you had some right-wing people who were, who politicized that whole issue and got Mr. Rittenhouse to decide that he wanted to leave his home, get an unlawful gun, go to another state, and become a vigilante and to protect property, and ended up killing people.
And you got some folks around here, go out here and shoot up Young Dolph, and not just Young Dolph, all these other folks, but wouldn't dare, these little punks, wouldn't dare confront a white supremacist. That's the crazy part about it.
You got members of Congress offering Rittenhouse a congressional internship. I mean, it's completely out of control.
Man, it's
when
worse.
I heard that, I was like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's worse than the '60s. We are all, and this is why it's so important to go out here and vote on off-year elections when these judges run and board members and city council and mayors and stuff, especially when these judges running, and then a lot of black judges are under attack all over the country, because the country is turning real conservative. And when black folks
a perfect example of what you're saying, Ricky, is that, remember in Rittenhouse, he was charged with an illegal gun case. That charge was dismissed because it was not against the law for him to have that AR-15 in a counter protest. Because what happens is exactly what you said. People ignore a lot of these local elections. They don't show up. These laws get passed by legislators that do not represent our interests. And then it legitimizes actions by people that are out there doing stuff that's completely against our interests and against common sense.
Right.
It should not be legal for a 17-year-old to go across state lines with an illegal gun, openly carry it, and then shoot somebody. And it wasn't. It was not against the law for him to have that gun.
And ain't that crazy? Trayvon Martin, 17 years old, the same age as Rittenhouse, and the only thing he had was some iced tea and a bag of Skittles, but he get the death penalty, and that white man get acquitted. George Zimmerman get acquitted for it, and Rittenhouse get the walk after killing two people and injuring another. And when we did not go out here and vote, when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump or whatever, he walked into the White House and appointed not one, not two, three United States Supreme Court justices.
Not to mention all the lower court judges that were appointed.
Plenty of federal Mitch
of
McConnell. Man, like unbelievable. And that
25% of all the federal judges in the United States were appointed by Donald Trump.
25 what?
25% of all the federal judges in the United States were appointed by Donald Trump. Those people serve lifetime terms. In my district, we have 4 Trump judges, and just in the Northern District of Alabama, that'll be serving lifetime terms. Some of them could be on the bench for 35 to 40 years.
Glennon, let everybody know how you could be reached.
Glennon Threatt on Facebook.
There it is, y'all. Hey, Glennon, thank you, big bro.
Thank you, man. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Hey, you too, man.